Hey guys, Walt Wagner here with TAV. Today is another completion day, pretty much on this 2021 Gladiator. This is a project we've been working on for a while. It's been kind of a long time coming. There's a lot going on with this one. One reason why this one's kind of important for us to get out is for some reason so many people thought we built only Toyotas. But myself, I've had probably 5 or 6 Jeeps of my own that I've built, and I like Jeeps a lot, and the Gladiators are pretty awesome. This one here is the diesel, and this is a local client that wanted to put one together. So when he was asking, he came to us to see what we thought about building one. I kind of let him know that there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of aftermarket support for Jeeps in general, especially the Gladiators. And it is it's a very popular platform for expedition travel. It's kind of the best of both worlds with being a truck and a solid front axle truck still. So we'll go top down on these. We've been going top down, talking about the builds from the top down to kind of let you know what the truck has to do first. Then it'll explain a little bit more about why we had to do the suspension the way we do. And that's the case with every truck we build. We want to know what the truck has to do first, what it has to carry. Then we know what we're doing with the suspension on how to make it handle all of that weight properly. So starting from the top, and this will also be a 2-part video. There's a lot going on with this. So we'll go over the truck, the camper with a certain amount of detail, but then later on we're going to do another video just on the camper itself and what's going on with that. So kind of starting at the top here, this is an Alu-Cab Canopy camper for the Gladiator, and on the driver's side we're running the 270-degree awning made by Alu-Cab, and it's kind of set up. A lot of people have seen these already out in the field a lot of people. It's a very popular product to camp in. Super cool setup and design, but this particular setup, a lot of this is kind of proprietary and set up one way. Like this awning, it's set up on the driver's side. It opens out and around to the back over the door in the back. So on the driver's side, the way this is configured, you've got a hatch on both sides. You can mount stuff to these. We've got some max tracks mounted to the other side, but they kind of come standard with your National Luna light, which is white, 3 different lighting modes on white and red as well. We have a full goose gear system on the inside that we'll talk about a little bit with some more custom stuff that we've done. This is to kind of just show you the driver's side. Once this truck is finished, it is extremely heavy, and we'll go over some of that here in just a minute. On the back, we're working with the Expedition Essentials propane mount, and that locks your propane tank in. We plumb these in to where it just hooks up like it would on your grill. Just undo it, take it out. It's locked on its own. You can just take it out, fill it wherever they fill tanks, and then just keep it right there on the outside of the truck. On this side, this is one of the options that they have for the Alu-Cab, and it's a little Molle panel that goes on the back here. But we're working with as you know, we've been working with Demos for a long time on the shovels, and so we have the Demos. This is the TAV version. We did a partnership with them a little while back, and we had limited numbers of these. If you guys would like some of those, send us some comments. We're gonna maybe do another run in a different color. We'll do a collab with Demos again, hopefully. So he's got that locked right here on the back, right where you kind of need it. Moving around to the passenger side, this is also an Expedition Essentials component, which I really like. It makes it a little easier to kind of mount and lock your max tracks either to a roof rack or to the side of a camper like this. But as you know, if you've ever worked with max tracks, they can be heavy. If you have 2 or 4 of them, they kind of have a lot of weight to them. So we did something to the gas struts on the inside of this, and when you open it, we just changed the gas struts out so it'll still lift the weight of the max tracks on the door. And it's just changing these guys out. They send them with it on there obviously, but that's to lift an empty door, a lightweight door. But you can get these in stronger lift capacities. Moving around a little bit further forward, this is the Alu-Cab shower cube. So you open this up and it folds out as a cube and it just drops straight to the ground, so you can have your shower set up here. This client has a shower that He's got a water tank on the inside, which we'll go over later, but he has a shower that'll deploy on the outside here. From the top of the truck, that's kind of it. He's got solar panels on the roof, and there's really hardly any weight to that. Up top, all the weight is really down low and in the bed, and that's kind of how we had to configure out the rest of the truck. Since we've already talked about the rear bumper, the Expedition 1 rear bumper, we'll move on, forward on the body armor and the protection. So these sliders are made by Eva Manufacturing. Super strong slider. They've got rock lights kind of built into them, and we've got those lights hooked up to the factory auxiliary switches in there. Just a small, simple white rock light. Moving around to the front. This is the ADD front bumper. This is one that he is Addictive Desert Designs bumper he wanted to spec on this truck. We kind of filled in, it's kind of got really just anything you'd need, winch mount and, a couple spots for lights and some good solid recovery points, and that's kind of all you need for the front of the truck. Kind of keeps the weight down and kind of builds strength into where you need it. For recovery on the front, we're running the Come Up 12,500 pound winch. This is the slim 12.5 RS. Synthetic winch line, which we always use, and an ultra hook. This is made by Factor 55. We're running the ultra hook here. For lighting, we're running the Baja Designs Squadron Pro, like we typically do in an amber and a driving combo pattern. And then right below that, you have the Baja Designs S8 in an amber driving combo. All right, for the rear bumper on this one, we're working with Expedition 1. You've seen those on a lot of the other trucks that we do. So this is an Expedition 1 dual swing rear, and this one's holding a 37-inch tire. You can hold I think a 40-inch tire on this, but this one's a 37, and you can see it fits really proportionately behind, between the brake lights and with the race jack here on the other swing out. To open this up, you pretty much use an open hand, because that thing will smash your thumb if you put your thumb on it. But just reach under where this latch is. You can just open it like that and let it come open. Just let it gently open, and there's a pin on this right by the spindle here that drops right into place. You see this pin right here, and that kind of holds it into place. If you just let that fling open, you can damage your pin, break it, and then it'll swing open further. You can just push that pin up and then have it swing all the way around if you wanted to, but you're gonna want a way to stop it. Maybe you could just put a strap or something on the side of the truck if you wanted it that far out of the way. But to bring it back, you can just push up on it and let it fall into the hole that stops it. So you open that side, same thing on this side. Just stops right there. In the rear bumper, we're running a kind of a work scene. You can see the difference in the lens pattern there. It's more of a work scene light, or a beam pattern. It's an amber Squadron, Baja Design Squadron Sport. And on the inside of the Jeep, when you're in reverse, if it's dark out, you can hit that, and it's a nice, really wide pattern of light, and it overlaps each other, so it lights up a great deal of area behind you. And as you can see too, you got good solid recovery points. You've got concessions for your backup sensors, your trailer brakes, factory plug just plugs right into the bumper right there. It's kind of high and out of the way, and and you're using the factory receiver hitch. Okay, for suspension on this one, we got a little bit creative. This is the base of it is the Rebel Off-Road Stage 2 Overland suspension system. So it's your upper and lower links and King coilover conversion, because it's normally just a coil sprung front end. So it's a coilover conversion, which allows a lot of articulation and tunability to the shock and coilover. And we're running a hydraulic bump stop in there as well, instead of the typical rubber bump stop. And it's a dual rate, a dual coilover. This coilover has two different spring rates. You have a lighter spring rate on top of a lower, heavier spring rate. And that, in the springs themselves are there to support the weight of the truck and keep the truck up off of the ground or off of your bump stops. You could literally just take the springs out of this thing and it would sit right down on its bump stops with the shock in place. But you put a spring in it, so that supports the weight of the truck. The shock's job is to dampen what's happening on the ground and to control the moving mass of that axle moving up and down and help control the truck as it's moving forward. So it's that all works together. All of this, the steering and everything is correct as it would be from the factory. So everything drives and handles really nice on this Jeep when you have your spring rates and valving correct. So the valving in the shock is what came from Rebel Off-Road. We changed our spring rates because this is their 4.5-inch kit, and it sat too tall for what we needed this truck to sit. So because this customer may go with a 40-inch tire later, but we didn't want the truck to sit taller than it is now with a 37. So it's very proportionate the way it is right now. A lot of people like it to be a little bit lower, but with what this truck needs to do, we've got it sitting right where we need it. This truck is extremely heavy. We're going to get a weight. We're going to go weigh this at the scales, but the springs that we got through Rebel were far too light for what this truck's got to do. These springs that we're running, we can get custom coil springs made. So this spring set is 1,500 pounds over stock spring rate. And as you can see, as the truck is sitting here, it's balanced really well. One other thing that we had to do is the internal valving of the shocks was way too light for the amount of weight of this Jeep. It wanted to kind of, if you were to go over a speed bump or something a little faster in the road, it wanted to kind of wobble a little bit or like not really plant itself very well, with its compression, kind of bounce a little bit in the rear because it's so heavy. So we pulled the shocks off, pulled them down, revalved them, compression and rebound, and that made a drastic difference. I love having the capability of doing that, to tailor the shock for the weight of the truck and the spring rate. So you can see the stance of the spring, that this spring allows the truck to stand with this much weight on it. And like I said, it's about 1,500 pounds over stock with what we've got built into these springs. And you'll notice that this looks a little bit dirty, a little bit scratched up. So this client was able to come and get the truck before we actually got all of the weight in it that's in it now, and he took it to Moab and kind of wanted to get a good feel for how the truck felt built at first, and then and drive it and kind of give us some feedback on how he wants things to feel in the valving and things like that. So as we added weight, he decided he wanted to change a little bit in the back of the truck. So we ended up adding a few things for him, and that's where we came up with our final valving and spring rates for the back, and we feel like we've got it pretty well dialed in now. And kind of going into the drivetrain, it's factory drivetrain. So this is the diesel engine, the factory gear ratio, factory lockers, all of the drivetrain is factory, because he wasn't sure if he wanted to go to, say, a Dana 60 and a 40-inch tire later. He's got other friends with 40s on their Gladiators, but this truck drives really well on the 37. Believe it or not, it does really good. Factory gear ratio. With all of this weight, I'm actually very impressed with what this little diesel is able to do on the highway. And you know that it's heavy, but it drives great. You can run the speed limit and 75 or so on the highway and be very comfortable. You're not taxing the truck too hard. And I think he's getting, on average, we're getting like 13 miles per gallon in it right now. So it's pretty cool. And finally, wrapping this thing up so far is probably my favorite wheel and tire combo is the Toyo Open Country Mud Terrain. That is a 37 1250 17 on a Method 703 bead grip. And I like this particular wheel just because it has a nice dish to it, but the dimensions of the wheel work really well for all the other trucks that we build, as well as this one. It's just a good clean look to it, but we use Method wheels because they have a patented bead on the wheel that it's got kind of ridges on it, and that's what they call their bead grip technology. And it's on the inner and outer bead of the wheel, so you can run this tire completely flat, and it's very hard to break a bead loose. Not that it's impossible to do, because I guess everything's possible, but when it comes to something like that, breaking a bead loose or whatever, more than likely you're going to cut your tire apart, if you had to drive out of something. but completely de-beading the tire on this, you've got to be in a really bad scenario. As opposed to a standard wheel has a, you know, a bead retention in it, it has to, and we'll do a video about that, explaining that later. But Method Race Wheels bead grip technology is extremely effective if you don't want to run a mechanical bead lock wheel. So there's not a whole lot we did on the inside of the truck. One thing that's pretty important is relocating the rear cameras. So he actually has 2 cameras on the back of the camper. One is the factory camera off the tailgate that's mounted up high by the 3rd brake light. And right next to that, we have another camera that comes on with the rear view mirror. So when the truck is on, the rear view mirror can be on all of the time. You can swipe left and it's a forward facing camera. You swipe right and it's a rear facing camera. Then you can touch the screen and it'll be both front and rear at the same time. It'll split the mirror, showing, you know, both cameras, and it'll also record. It's a pretty cool unit. And so with this client being local to Albuquerque, New Mexico, understands that from my experience, the drivers, no offense to people, everyone in Albuquerque, but the drivers in Albuquerque are not the greatest, and red lights seem to be just a recommendation to stop. So he's got in order to get somebody's attention when they're not paying enough attention to stop at a red light, he's got a truck horn. We put a truck horn underneath the bed of this thing and place a nice large red button right on the dash. So it's easy to get to quickly and kind of make himself known if he's got some moron activity going on in front of him. All right, that kind of wraps up the walk around for this Gladiator. I hope you guys were able to get something out of the fact that we actually do build Jeeps too, and we've got a couple more that we've done, but there wasn't enough work to kind of warrant a whole video to put into it. But this is really just to kind of answer a lot of questions for folks on how we're balancing a truck out, what we're doing to eliminate some of these vibration problems with trucks, you know, with gear vibrating or gear placement, things like that. But the concept of what we're doing with building these trucks within our suspension systems and how we're getting the suspension to work right with what it's got to carry works with everything with wheels on it. Every vehicle that has a suspension underneath it, it all acts and works the same way in theory. So it just depends on what the truck's got to do, then we can address what's going on underneath and how the person wants to drive it. So hopefully you're able to get something out of this video. We've got a couple more things coming up that will be slightly different, so keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on part 2. We're going to go over the camper in great detail, as great as it can be. But otherwise, keep an eye out on Instagram at TAVLLC and our website, tavllc.com, where there's a store. You can kind of get a lot of this equipment that's, you know, even down to some of the campers and trailers that we're working with. So if you want to get a good look there, and a link to our YouTube channel, which you're watching now. So if you can, just go check those out. We appreciate it. It helps a lot, and we'll see you on the next one.